Yeah, we live. We live. All Black Everything. We back. Appreciate you for checking it out. Do me a favor and just like it, share it, subscribe it. Content is good for you. Good information. We just sharing information. We back with the Communist Manifesto, doing a learn me slash pick up a book on All Black Everything. Go ahead and check us out right here. Check out the links for the shirts. We got the custom made. Getting right. But yes, sir. We're gonna come back. I do not own the rights to this music. That's that good Willie Nelson. Shout out to him. And we doing it like this. Right where we left off. But you communists would introduce community of women, screams the whole bourgeois in chorus. The bourgeois sees in his wife a mere instrument of production. He hears that the instruments of production are to be exploited in common and naturally can come to no other conclusion than that the lot of being common to all will likewise fall to the women. He has not even a suspicion that the real point aimed at is to do away with the status of women as the mere instruments of production. For the rest, nothing is more ridiculous than the virtuous indignation of the bourgeois. What's up, pal? Come here, pal. Come on.
You gonna use Elvis?
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry about that. We had a little something we had to handle with pops. Sorry about that. We coming right back. And we were at, let's see. For the rest, nothing is more ridiculous than the virtuous indignation of our bourgeois at the community of women which they pretend is to be openly and officially established by the communists. The communists have no need to introduce community of women. It has been it has existed almost from the time immemorial. Our bourgeois, non-content with having the wives and daughters of their proletarians at their disposal, not to speak of common prostitutes, take the greatest pleasure in seducing each other's wives. Bourgeois marriage, bourgeois marriage is in reality a system of wives in common, and thus, at the most, what the communists might possibly be reapproached with is that they desire to introduce, in substitution for the hypocritically concealed and openly legalized community of women. For the rest, it is self-evident that the abolition of the present system of production must be must bring, with the abolition of the community of women springing from that system, i.e., of prostitution, both public and private. The communists are further reproached with desiring to abolish countries and nationality. Mm, they don't want to do that. The working men have no country. We cannot take from them what they have not got. Since the proletariat must first of all acquire political supremacy, must rise to be the leading class of the nation, must constitute itself the nation. It is so far itself national, though not in the bourgeois sense of the word. National differences and antagonism between peoples are vanishing gradually from day to day, owing to the development of the bourgeois, to freedom of commerce, to the world market, to the uniformity in the mode of production and in the conditions of life corresponding thereto. The supremacy of the proletariat will cause them to vanish still faster. United action of the leading civilized countries, at least, is one of the first conditions for the emancipation of the proletariat. In proportion as the exploitation of one individual by another is put to an end, the exploitation of one nation by another will also be put to an end. Two, in proportion as the antagonism between classes within the nations vanishes, the hostility of one nation to another will come to an end. The charges against communism made from a religious, a philosophical, and generally from an ideological standpoint are not deserving of serious examination. Does it require deep intuition to comprehend that man's ideas, views, and conceptions of in one word, man's consciousness changes with every change in the condition of his material existence, in his social relations, and in his social life. What else does the history of ideas prove than that intellectual production changes its character in proportion as material production is changed? The ruling idea of each age has ever been the ideas of its ruling class. When people speak of ideas that revolutionize society, they do but express the fact that within the old society, the elements of a new one have been created, and that the dissolution of the old ideas keep even pace with the dissolution of the old conditions of existence. When the ancient world was in its last throes, the ancient religions were overcome by Christianity. When Christian ideas succumbed in the 18th century to rationalist ideas, feudal society fought its death battle with the then revolutionary bourgeois. The ideas of the religious liberty, of the idea of religious liberty, and freedom of conscience merely gave expression to the sway of free competition within the domain of knowledge. Undoubtedly, it will be said, religion, moral, philosophical, and juridical, juridical, juridical ideas have been modified in the course of history development. But religion, morality, political science, and law constantly survive this change. There are, besides eternal truths such as freedom, justice, etc., that are common to all states of society, but communism abolishes external truths. It abolishes all religion and all morality. Instead of constituting them on a new basis, it therefore acts in contradiction to all past historical experience. What does this accusation reduce itself to? The history of all past society has consisted in the development of class antagonism that assumed different forms at different epochs. But whatever form they may have taken, one fact is common to all past ages, viz., the exploitation of one part of society by the other. No wonder then the social consciousness of past ages, despite all the multiplicity and variety it displays, moves within certain common forms or general ideas, which cannot completely vanish except with the total disappearance of class antagonism. The communist revolution is the most radical rupture with traditional property relations. No wonder that its development involves the most rupture. Yeah, I meant rupture up there. Sorry, radical rupture with traditional ideas. That means you got to get rid of them. You got to get them up out of here. Mm-hmm. We keep going. We almost there. But let us have done with the bourgeois objections of communism. We have seen above that the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of ruling class to establish democracy. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degrees all capital from the bourgeois, to centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state, i.e., of the proletariat organized and ruling class, and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Of course, in the beginning, this cannot be effected except by means of despotic inroads on the rights of property and on the conscience the conditions of bourgeois production by means of measures, therefore, which appear economically insufficient and untenable, but which in the course of the movement outstrip themselves, necessitate further inroads up the old social order, and are unavoidable as means of entirely revolutionizing the mode of production. These measures will, of course, be different in different countries. Nevertheless, in most advanced countries, the following will be pretty generally acceptable. Number one, abolition of property in land and application of all rents and land to public purposes. Indeed. Number two, a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. Number three, abolish, shoot, abolition of all right of inheritance. Confiscation. Number four, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. Number five, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and inclusive monopoly. Number six, centralization of the means of communication and transport in the hands of the state. Number seven, extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, the bringing into cultivation of wastelands, and the improvement of the soil generally in accordance with a common plan. Number eight, equal obligation of all to work. Right. Everybody eats, everyone works. You know what I'm saying? That's just common sense. Establishment of industrial armies, especially for agriculture. Number nine, combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries. Gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the population over the country. And number 10, free education for all children in public schools, abolition of child factory labors in its present form, combination of education with industrial production. What's wrong with it? Huh? What's wrong with it? Huh? Use your brain. But they don't want that. No money in there. When, in the course of development, class distinctions have disappeared, all production has been concentrated in the hands of a vast association of the whole nation, the public power will lose its political character. Political power, properly so called, is merely the organized power of one class for oppressing another. Let me say that again. Political power, properly so called, is merely the organized power of one class for oppressing another. If the proletariat during its contest with the bourgeois is compelled by the force of circumstances to organize itself as a class, if by means of a revolution it makes itself the ruling class, and as such sweeps away by force the old conditions of production, then it will, along with these conditions, have swept away the conditions for the existence of class antagonism and of classes generally, and will thereby have abolished its own supremacy as a class. In its place, it sounds like something going down there, it's just going down the drain. It's just going down the drain. In place of the old bourgeois society with its classes and class antagonism, we shall have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. Boom. We're going to end right there. The Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx, Frederick Engles. Check it out. Do your own diligence. Don't take my word for anything. I'm just sharing information. We're here on All Black Everything. This is Learn With Me / Pick Up a Book. Let's go. Appreciate y'all. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, subscribe, share, like, share, subscribe, whatever. Subscribe, like it, share, however you like to do it. It doesn't matter the order. No, I do. It do a little bit, but nah. When you coming back, All Black Everything, Learn With Me / Pick Up a Book. We're going to be on chapter 3, Socialist and Communist Literature. Come back with us. All black everything. Mm-hmm. Peace and love. Black love. Black love. Black love. And power in this thing. You know?
Crazy for feeling so lonely.